Celebrated it yesterday with our ice cream social, with our winning social right there. Had some ice cream and hung out with the boys a little bit, watched some NFL football for an hour or so. Got to see the family and got to see all the other coaches' families. And then went back to work on EKU, state championship game this week. We call this a horseshoe game. Just anytime we're playing our in-state rival, we're going to put a horseshoe on the wall right there. So kids are really fired up about the opportunity. Coaches are really fired up about the opportunity and just ready to get going on this week of preparation. Because we've got a huge task ahead of us, a really good football team ahead of us in EKU, a lot of good players, and get to play at their place over in Richmond, so that's always a lot of fun. A beautiful venue to play at now. They've done a lot of renovations over there, so it'd be a lot of fun. We're really getting excited about this opportunity to get another bus trip, a chance to travel with the guys, and obviously I always like that, always enjoy that opportunity to get on the bus with those guys, watch the movies and things like that. So be a lot of fun and be a great week of preparation.
What's the biggest difference that you've seen maybe in the locker room at this time this year compared to this time last year, or if any?
Guys having fun playing. And that sounds pretty elementary, but guys. For instance, you take our ice cream social. We don't check roll at that. My wife asked me yesterday, "Do you check roll? Do you do some big do y'all have a speech? Do you clap?" No, we don't do any of that stuff. We just come and we eat ice cream and we hang out. And probably the biggest difference that I see is half the time we're having to usher those guys out. Like, they want to stay, they want to eat all the ice cream, and they want to watch all the NFL football, and they just want to hang out in here the whole day. And as coaches, we love that, but we also have a lot of work to do. At some point we've got to get back in the office, have a 4 o'clock staff meeting and things like that. So it winds up being we're in here and before you know it, all the coaches are going, "Oh, crap, man, we got to go to work. Hey, boys, y'all, we got to go. Y'all can sit in here if you want to, but we got to go." And it's just those little things, and you go back there in the locker room and, we've got a policy. You'll see a sign on our door when you enter the locker room where it says no cell phones allowed. And it's one of those things when we started it, hey, is there a consequence to it? No. Other than if I walk in and I see 4 dudes sitting there with their cell phones out and not talking to one another, and we'll say, "Hey, put your phones up and talk to one another." But we don't really have to do that very much. They've just kind of taken to that, and they like one another. They like playing with one another and for one another. Great example of that, Saturday night, Tez Roberts, a young corner, was in there, and he got beat on a post. And, man, he was tore up about it until he came to the sideline. It was right before we switched ends of the field because it was right before the fourth quarter. And he was really jarred up about it until he came to the sideline during the timeout, during the fourth quarter switch. And Black went over there and grabbed him because Black was the guy, that's his position, but he was on the sideline getting a breather. And he went over there and, patted Tez on the butt, said, "Man, don't worry about it. They'll come to you again and you'll make a play." And just those things, as opposed to being mad because he wasn't in there or mad because Tez didn't make that play. It's a pat on the helmet, a pat on the butt, and "Hey, man, you'll get them next time. Look, do this thing next time. Do this with your footwork or whatever." And I think when you start to build those things amongst your team, and it's not so much policing going on from the coaches, you start to reap some benefits from it. Now, are we there? No, we're not there. We still got a lot to work on, a lot of things to do. But it makes it a little bit more fun. And I think, like you said, I think you start to see good things happen when those type of things are going on among your team.
I know you guys say week-to-week approach, but going into the second half of the season, any kind of different mindset, now that you've rattled off 3 straight wins?
Nope, not at all. The biggest thing I'm concerned about right now is being able to practice today. Got some weather and what that practice is going to look like, and making sure that whether we go outside in the rain, whether we go upstairs in our indoor facility on the 3rd floor of the stadium, wherever we get to go, making sure that we do the best. We have the best Monday practice, and we get the preparation that we need for this week. And that's it. That's literally it. I'm not lying to you. That's literally, if you'd asked me Saturday before Tennessee State's game, who do I play this week, I would not have known. If you ask me right now, who do I play next week, don't know, don't care. I play EKU. And right now I'm trying to practice on a Monday and get the best practice that I can out of a Monday, and that's where it stops for me.
Do you have any receiver who hasn't caught a ball yet? Who might?
I think no. Jacob Bell caught one, so he's got one. McCray's got one. So no, we don't have we do not have a receiver on the roster that has not caught a ball. So we've which helps Coach Sub in that room. Everybody's gotten their chances, so we're going to try to continue. I think that's the best thing. That's what I love about old Drew, and we've talked about this. We talked about it after the EIU game, because if you remember, there was one play with Tez Brooks where Drew threw it over there, and it looked like him and Tez weren't on the same page. And it's one of those backside routes that's kind of an option for Drew. And, during the week of practice, do you get a whole lot of reps at that particular throw? No, because, again, it's an option for Drew. But one thing we've told those receivers is hey, man, that cat, it's 5 wide all the time. You better think that you're getting the ball, and you better run your route like you're getting the ball, because just as a play caller, I don't really know where that ball is going all the time. When he's got different options, it's very hard to say, okay, I'm going to call this play. I think we're going to end up on the left hash, because as soon as you think like that, we're on the right hash. It makes it easy, because all of those guys run their routes with incredible effort, because they know that guy may be coming to them. Even if they're the 5th read in the progression, it may get to them. So it's kind of a good thing that we've got going on right now offensively.
It's also an advantage for Drew, because this is his first year here. He doesn't have a favorite receiver. Like, this guy's been good to me for 3 years. Doesn't have that guy.
Yeah, I know it's an advantage for the wideouts, because, like you said, he doesn't have that guy that he's just cued in on. I think it's an advantage for Drew, just because right now there's not really one guy you can that you have to take away, and I really like that. I like that about our offensive system right now. It's really, from a defensive standpoint, it's not going to do you any good to double this guy or double that guy or double that guy, and there's not really a guy going into the game where you say, hey, we've got to eliminate that guy. We've got to eliminate that guy. So I think that it is advantageous for Drew in that sense, because the defense is just kind of spread out. They got to play all of them, and you don't really know where he's going to go with the football.
How much more comfortable is Drew right now compared to, say, that first game of the year? Because it seems like he's gotten better with each and every week.
Yeah, I would think. I mean, I don't want to speak for him. I know watching him, he looks tremendously more comfortable. And just watching him go through practice, listening to him talk to those guys. Because that's not an easy deal. It's not an easy deal to come in 2 months before a season, and you're trying to learn people's personalities. You're trying to get the personality of the team. You're trying to figure out who's the best, who's not so good, who's your man-on-man matchup, who's not your man-on-man matchup, and things of that nature. And you've got to do all of that in a condensed time frame. So it's not an easy task, but I think he's done a good job of it. And I think with each week, with each day, that he gets a chance to go out there and throw to those guys and learn with those guys, he just gets that much more comfortable playing ball.
It seems like a simple question, but how much is man coverage and the defenses you're having to face opening up the run game for this team?
A little bit. I think, I think that, again, my philosophy has always been it's football math. You try to figure out what they're going to try to take away from you, and you do the opposite. And the other night it was no different. Going into the game, it was pretty evident that Tennessee State was not. They did not want us to rush the ball. They did not want us to run the ball. They did not want us to have a big night. So they tried to take that away. So we threw the ball a bunch. I think Drew threw it like 50 times or something like that. And that's as dirt dumb as it sounds. That's how I try to keep it. That's how Nick Coleman tries to keep it. That's how Coach Hamilton tries to keep it. That's how Coach Hunter tries to keep it. That's all Suber's looking for up in the box is where are they putting the majority of their numbers? What can we do away from the majority of those numbers? And it just works for us. It may not work for other people and the way that they like to call things and call the game and the way that they like to run their offense. But for us, it works for us. It's we're going to try to put our guys in the most successful situations based on what they're trying to take away, and us going away. It's almost like fight or flight. We're more flight than we are fight. Instead of just going in there and saying, hey, it's 7 against 5 or 6 against 5, let's beat our heads against the wall and let's try to just muscle that thing up. We would rather just go away from all that trash. Whether that's running the football against light boxes or throwing the football against heavy boxes, that's kind of how we tend to operate offensively.
You talk about those heavy boxes. How are you going to stop Eastern Kentucky's running game?
Whew. I don't know. It's tough. They give you a lot of eye candy. They've got a lot of tight ends. They got a lot of backs. They got a lot of running backs that they'll use. Some of them are big. Some of them are not big. They run the zone concepts very well. They play with 2 quarterbacks. They've got a lot of stuff. They've got a lot of inventory that you have to be ready for. Alignment and assignment for us defensively is going to be crucial. When they start to give you all those tight ends and trading tight ends and making all those extra gaps that you have to account for, that's the biggest thing, is you've got to make sure that you're accounting for those gaps, because that's what they're trying to do in an offensive system like that, is to get you out-gapped, out-leveraged. So I think that's where it starts, is from an alignment assignment standpoint. We've got to get aligned and make sure that we got all our gaps covered. And then after that, it boils down to the same 2 things we've been talking about. It's effort and enthusiasm, man. How hard are you going to play, and how excited are you going to be to play that hard? If we can do those things on a down-in, down-out basis, then we got a chance.
Since you got here, you've always talked about, getting this team to the level that they need to be, and we've seen improvement over the years. Now, with this 3-0 start, you're starting to see a lot of that come to fruition. For you personally, what is that like, seeing what you tried to preach to these guys for 4 years now starting to come to life?
Haven't thought about it. Hopefully I will have that conversation with myself or you after the season's done. But right now, again, I thought it was really funny. Saturday night, I think somebody asked Quincy and Drew what they thought about being 3-0 for the first time since 1997, or whatever that stat is, and both of them said, I don't know, I was 2 years old when it was 1997, or I was 1 year old when it was 1997. That's the mentality that we want on this football team. That's what I want us thinking about, is what are we going to do today? What are we going to do today to get better, to improve? And then let all of that other stuff be for the conclusion of the season, basically. Whatever it looks like at the end, we'll worry about that at the end. Right now, we've got a huge task in front of us. We've got running backs in front of us. We've got tight ends in front of us. We've got a lot of eye candy in front of us defensively that we've got to learn how to stop in a span of 5 days. We've got some really good special teams opportunities. We've got some B.K. Smith. He was a kid I recruited out of high school. I tried to get B.K. Smith here. I will just go on and tell you that. I recruited the crap out of B.K. Smith. He wound up going to Eastern Kentucky. He's their returner. He's an electric player. I saw him a lot. I think he's out of Louisville Male, if I'm not mistaken. He's a good player. We've got to figure out how to stop him. Offensively, we've got to figure out how to control their 2 big, long defensive ends. Man, wait till you see these guys. They're big and long. They've got 2 backers that are very good. We've got to figure out how to do that. And that's our focus for these 5 days. That's our focus, so that when we get to Saturday, all of us feel like we've earned the right to do those things, and we've earned the right to come out with a W and come back home 4-0. And that's what we're going to focus on, and that's it. And that's with our players, that's with our coaches, that's with myself. That's our focus.
Is there concern that because these players that you have are experiencing the success for the first time, that they may get too high on themselves, heading into another game?
Yep.
If that's the case, how do you?
Always. You focus on the day-to-day. You focus on the task. And I tell you that I'm a really good friend with Colonel Alia, who used to be down at Fort Campbell, who is now he did his last tour, and then he got stationed somewhere else. Those colonels I've learned through him that they're worse than coaches. Them and their wives, they move all over the place and get stationed different places. Doesn't even matter if you did a good job, you get stationed in another place. And he sends me an email every week, whether good or bad. He sends me an email every week about his thoughts on how we played. He knows a little bit about the game, but it's more about the external factors. It's more about, hey, man, you're 0-3. Where do we go from here? You're 3-0 now. Where do we go from here? We talk a lot about complacency. We talk a lot about mindsets and different things like that. And it always goes back to one simple element, and it is stop worrying about all that stuff. Don't talk about it. Don't worry about it. It's there. Everybody knows it's there. The kids know it's there. They're on social media. They see all the posts, the Twitter posts, and all of the people getting excited about it, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. That's a great thing. That's something that we haven't had around here in a long time. If you want to continue on that trend, forget about it and continue to focus on the work at hand and what you have to do today. Continue to focus on, man, Monday is a base day for us. We're going to go out there and we're going to work on all of our hurt me's on defense. These are things that hurt us. Let's continue to get better so that these things don't continue to hurt me. Offensively, let's take a day to where we go back and we strip it all down and we work base concepts, base runs, base screens, base passes before we start to build out our game plan. And let's focus on those things. Special teams-wise, let's focus on all the fundamentals of how to defeat blocks and how to get people on the ground. And let's build that foundation. And then Tuesday, let's start to build our foundation of our game plan. Wednesday, let's start to build the physicality that we need going into Saturday. Thursday, let's do it really, really fast so that we know the game plan. Friday, let's put a bow on it. Saturday, let's earn the right to win. Let's feel like we've earned the right to win. If we'll continue to focus on that, none of the other stuff matters. The other stuff is is for the fans. It's for the university. It's for the social media. It's for the newspaper. It's for the stories. We're for the work. We're about the work. We're not about the stories. We're about the work.
I know McCluskey and Scott are their two, probably their best running backs.
Yeah.
They really go to them a lot. They're struggling throwing the ball. How do you guys continue to game plan? While they are successful running the ball, they are going to.
And I don't know, as a coach, and you got to understand, man, we're negative Nancy's. We always think about the worst, and we always play the what-if game, and it's very hard as a coach not to chase ghosts. But the way that we see it, the way that we're approaching it, I'm not so sure. I don't know if they're struggling throwing the ball or if they just run the ball really well. To me, I think they just run the ball really well, and that's their main. That is who they are. They can run it against anybody. It doesn't matter whether they play Bowling Green or whoever else. They can run that ball, and they've got tight ends built for that. They've got tight ends that a lot of people don't have in this league, and that's a challenge in itself. So when they do decide to play action, you drop back and pass it. Now all of a sudden you gotta cover those big jokers, and that's a different deal. That's something that I can't replicate at practice. I don't have a lot of those bodies walking around, and the ones that I do have walking around are down there with me playing my tight end, So I don't know if they're struggling to throw the ball or if they just run the ball that well. Either way, we got to be prepared for it. But the way that we're going to prepare for it is our thought process is they can run it. They can run it on anybody. So let's try to stop that first. And then let's just don't get hit by the big plays in the passing game. Let's try to keep everything in front of us and go rally up and make the tackle.